Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Joe Vitale with another Hypnotic Gold interview. You know, I stopped and reflected, and I've been doing these for about 8 years. I've done 80-plus interviews, which kind of shows you that if you just start doing something and you persist and maintain and just get up every morning and do it, over time you turn around, look back, and you're astonished at what you've created. I've done the same thing with books. I've written 50-some books, but I didn't start out that way. I started out writing one book. I didn't start out writing or recording 80-some interviews for Hypnotic Gold. I did the first one, did the second one, did the third one. Next thing you know, it's 8 years later, 80-some interviews, and here we are. And I'm mentioning it, too, because this is called Hypnotic Gold, yet I don't recall ever actually interviewing a hypnotist. So that seems like I'm a little out of date. It's time for me to do it, and that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm interviewing one of the most famous hypnotists in the world, one of the most powerful hypnotists in the world. I'll be interviewing Steve G. Jones. He's a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist. He has been practicing hypnotherapy since the 1980s. He is the author of 25 books on hypnosis, the law of attraction, and weight loss. He is a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists, American Board of Hypnotherapy, president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. He's on the board of directors of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Lung Association. He's director of the California State Registered Steve G. Jones School of Hypnotherapy, and it goes on and on. He's also a hypnotist to the stars. He's a celebrity hypnotist. Steve G. Jones also works extensively with Hollywood actors, writers, directors, and producers, helping them achieve their best. And I'm glad to say he is a friend of mine, and we are business partners. We have products together, and we will be coming out with a seminar and other products very, very soon. So I am honored, I am pleased, and we're in for a treat. Steve, are you there?
I am here, Joe. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for making the time. How are you doing today?
My pleasure. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, we actually had some rain today, and that might not sound like news, but I'm in Texas, and we went through a drought a while back for 9 months.
Whoa.
So when it rains now, we don't care if it floods. We don't care how long it rains. We're not complaining.
That's right.
We welcome it.
Good stuff.
So I want to talk about hypnosis. I want to talk about your experience. I want to talk about how we can use hypnosis to better ourselves, increase sales, whatever it happens to be that can be a bottom-line result for all of us. But I need to start in the beginning and ask some basic questions, you know, and we'll get to a lot of these because a lot of people may not even know what hypnosis is. They may have some assumptions. But I want to find out, and I don't know that I know, even though we're friends, how did you become interested in hypnosis? What was the beginning of that?
Well, I had a very humble beginning. I started in military school. I was in Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia. My parents sent me there for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade because they simply didn't know how to deal with me. And so a lot of...
There's a story there, but I won't probe.
There you go. A lot of kids get threatened to be sent to military school. I actually earned the right to be sent there. So there I was in military school, bored out of my mind, not into academics, not into anything much. And I got a book by a guy named Leslie LeCron called A Complete Guide to Hypnosis. Is anything
Famous
but complete.
Book.
Yeah, it very much is. It's by a psychologist, and it wasn't really complete. It was a paperback, and I was able to read it, fairly quickly and go through it. But it was complete enough for me to get a very good grasp on the basics of hypnosis. So I started hypnotizing my roommates in military school.
Wow.
And the smart kids came to me wanting to study more efficiently. The athletes wanted to get more bang for their buck when they exercised. So now that was in the early 80s. Now all these years later, I'm still doing the same thing, except the smart kids are NASA and the athletes are the Dodgers.
That's amazing. You know, I couldn't help but imagine, my imagery was taking over here, and I saw a movie being made. I think we should go back and write a script about you in that military school, and you've got all these, the smart asses come to you, the jocks come to you.
Right.
And, well, I want to ask you questions like, did you ever pull pranks on them? Did they pull pranks on you? I'm curious. I guess my mind's wandering.
I did. I learned about post-hypnotic suggestions. So I would tell somebody, when you hear the word pepper, you'll have to scratch your nose. And then we'd sit at that person's table in the mess hall where we all ate that night. I would tell everyone what I had done, and we'd all say, hey, pass the pepper, pass the pepper, pass the pepper, and the person would scratch their nose. Luckily, I realized I could use my powers for good after a while.
Yeah, I also get a glimpse of why you were sent to military school, too, now.
Yeah.
That is outstanding. In case I stepped over the title when you were saying what it was, what was Leslie's book again, Complete Guide to Hypnosis?
Yes.
Okay, because I know
book, but it's... Mm-hmm.
Say that again?
It's a little paperback book. It's about 150 pages, but very, action-packed. From the minute you start reading, you get a really good understanding in a very straightforward way of how to use hypnosis in a practical manner.
And you learned hypnosis from that book.
That was my first introduction to it. I was probably 15 years old. I then had a lot of academic study and went to various schools of hypnosis around the country, but that was my very first introduction. And I would say that a good bit of just my basic understanding of hypnosis came from that book written by a psychologist.
That's amazing. So let's define this a little bit so we are all on the same page and we're not terrified, because a lot of people have weird ideas about what hypnosis is. What is your definition of it, whether it's Leslie's definition or what you've come up with over the years? When somebody says, what is hypnosis, how do you answer that question?
Well, I say it's a relaxed state of mind in which you're much more open to the possibility of change.
And you're more willing to hear the word pepper means scratch your nose?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, how does hypnosis work then? You're in a relaxed state of mind, and you're more open to suggestions, but how does that actually work? What's going on there?
Well, I don't think anyone really thoroughly understands the mechanism by which it works. It's a little odd that we are programmable like that, and people, when they first see a stage hypnosis show, for example, they think, oh, that's ridiculous. It's not true, but it actually is true. Some people can be brought up on stage, told their shoe is a telephone and talking to it. And I don't do that. I do clinical hypnotherapy, which is helping people overcome their fears and so forth. But the mechanism by which it works is still a bit of a mystery, but it seems to have something to do with us needing to be programmed in order to learn certain things.
Well, that's pretty fascinating. We need to be programmed. It's almost like we're computers that need the software.
Right.
And I'm just kind of making that up. But it sounds like that's what your description is. And I don't have a better definition at all of the operating system. But I also know, even with the new field of neuroscience, and they're looking so closely into the operating of the brain, we don't know what's going on. We don't have a full understanding. We're not even close.
Exactly.
So to say that about hypnosis, well, it makes perfect sense. We don't really know.
Exactly. I mean, even having studied psychology at Harvard, I can still say that I do not fully understand how hypnosis works or exactly why it works, the full benefit that it's supposed to have naturally. But I do know that because it does exist, we're able to sort of tweak it a little bit and use it to our advantage to get to where we want to be.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because it, in a sense, will sell people on why this is important. What are the benefits? In other words, you did mention at the military school people came to improve their grades or to improve their performance in athletics. But what other uses are there? A few examples, a few ideas, a few benefits?
Well, there are anything in which the mind is involved is a potential target for hypnosis, and that leaves open pretty much everything. For example, stopping smoking, losing weight, overcoming fear of flying, stopping nail biting, having a better memory. Anything in which the mind is sort of getting in the way, the mind can be altered. You're not really changing the mind, but you're working within the mechanisms of the mind to help it work better for the individual to get over those things.
I love it. I've seen powerful things myself, so I know what you're talking about. Well, what are the effects of hypnosis permanent? Because if somebody comes to you and says, okay, help me quit smoking, or help me pass this test, or learn a language, I mean, there's probably any number of things I could say, but are the effects of hypnosis permanent?
Well, we do find that just like a piano being tuned, it's good to tune it again every now and then. It will go out of tune. Sometimes the effects are permanent. It really depends on the individual. For example, I've worked with people to stop smoking, and years later they still have not started smoking. Same thing for weight loss and overcoming certain fears. It really depends on the individual. However, in some cases I have found that they do need a little retuning, in which case it's not as difficult as it was the first time, where a little bit more time needs to be spent with them. It's a matter of just a little refresher, if you will.
I like that. I like the idea of tweaking. That makes total sense. I have guitars around me where I'm sitting right now, and I have to tune them every time I go to play. So, and sometimes they're not badly out of tune. They're just, it's just a tweak.
Right.
So it sounds a little bit like hypnosis could be the same way. Well, what about some misconceptions about hypnosis? Because, boy, people worry about the evil that could be done, or they're thinking of the stage hypnotist who is making, well, some could say that you're making fun of people. What are some of the misconceptions, the truth and the falsehood when it comes to hypnosis?
Well, one of the main ones is that you will do anything that the hypnotist tells you to do.
Yes, that's one of them, that's for sure.
And we have movies like Curse of the Jade Scorpion, a Woody Allen movie, where Woody Allen gets hypnotized, and then all the person who hypnotized him has to do is call him up and say, Madagascar. And when Woody Allen hears Madagascar, he either robs his neighbor or robs a bank because he's been programmed to do so. That's not reality. That would require someone to go instantly into a very deep trance and maintain that under very unusual circumstances in their everyday lives. So that doesn't happen, but things like that get into Hollywood, and that causes that misconception. So misconception number one is that you are under the full power of the hypnotist. Not true. Another misconception is that you may go into a coma and not come out of hypnosis, and be in a state of limbo. That's not true either. What happens is, if you do go to sleep, which can happen, which stages of sleep and wakefulness are the same as the stages of hypnosis and not being in hypnosis. So if you go to sleep, you're still in hypnosis. You would wake up when you normally would wake up after perhaps a short nap. Those are two of the main misconceptions.
What about doing it yourself? Some people believe you can do it, that's called self-hypnosis, and others believe you can't. You have to have a hypnotist, and there are actually even people who believe there is no such thing as hypnosis. What do you say to any of those?
Well, first of all, there is such thing as hypnosis. And then as far as self-hypnosis goes, they say they meaning popular opinion says that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I believe that the facilitator is going to play a large role in it, however, to help it along. But anyone who wants to use self-hypnosis, I think that's fine, and that's how I started out when I first started reading the book about hypnosis that I got as a kid. However, keep in mind that if you are both the hypnotist and the patient, and the hypnotist falls asleep, then there's no more hypnotist, and you are going to just sleep it out. So it's better to make a recording and listen to that. Make it ahead of time, then listen to that. Use that to put yourself into hypnosis if you want to practice, quote-unquote, self-hypnosis. Right.
Well, do you have, I guess it's a loaded question, but do you have a favorite way of doing it? In other words, maybe I should ask it this way. Do you do self-hypnosis on yourself, or do you go to a hypnotist when you want to tweak something?
Well, what I do is I make a recording for myself, and now I have the sound studio set up, which I'm sure you do as well for music and your recordings and so forth. Right. And so I make my own recording when I want to work on something, and then I listen to that because I don't want to, put myself to sleep at night saying hypnotic suggestions and then just fall asleep and not get any of the benefits. So if I fall asleep while listening to a recording, the recording is still playing, and keeping in mind the stages of wakefulness and sleep are the same as the stages of hypnosis and non-hypnosis. If I fall asleep, I'm still getting the positive programming.
And is that because you're speaking to the unconscious mind, whether you are consciously asleep or consciously relaxed because of hypnosis?
Yes, it's because you're speaking to the subconscious mind.
Right. So I know that you're a celebrity hypnotist, which, my goodness, that sounds so appealing right there. There's another movie, by the way. All of your encounters with all the celebrities you've worked with. That sounds like another movie if they'd let you do it.
They'll pay not to.
There's another income stream, getting paid not to make these movies. There you go.
I like it.
But I'm curious, do you have a favorite story, whether it's about a celebrity or whether it's about an individual you worked with? You don't have to give names or anything, but it might be really useful to people to understand how this works and the benefits of it. to hear a firsthand report of so-and-so came to you with a particular issue. Do you have a favorite story you like to tell?
I absolutely do. One that really touches my heart. I'll be glad to share it.
Tell us.
Okay, that was the story. It was a few years back. There was a lady named Jen who came to see me, and Jen was about 180 pounds or so overweight. So it's not as if she weighed that much. That's how much she was over her ideal weight. She was beyond what would be considered an inconvenience, and it was at the point where medical intervention was going to be necessary. Beyond that, her mother came into the session with me. That happens a lot, especially with, I believe she's in her early 20s. The mothers come in, or a spouse comes in, wants to sit through the session with them. That's fine, because Jen was fine with it. I was fine with it. And by the way, she's given me permission to talk about this.
Oh, great.
And her situation was beyond the weight. That was probably just the icing on the cake, if you will. She was very, very upset with her life. In fact, the week before, she had told her mother that she was going to commit suicide. She was going to end her life. This was their last-ditch effort before Jen took her own life. So she didn't have anything she wanted in life, and she had all this extra weight. So I worked with her for a few sessions. I usually work with someone for 6 sessions on weight loss, just to put positive thoughts in her mind about exercise and eating right and so forth. And I don't expect any major weight loss during just 6 weeks. I then sent her on her way, made sure that she understood what she was supposed to do, and everything seemed okay. She didn't talk about suicide anymore, so I didn't hear from her for quite a while. I think it was probably a couple of years. And then I got a letter from her. And in the letter, she told me that she was thanking me, and she said she had lost the amount of weight she no longer wanted. She had married the man of her dreams, who for her was a tall architect. That was her ideal man in her mind. She actually attracted him to her and married him. They had 2 children. So she was not only still alive, but she had created the life that she wanted. Now, I don't take responsibility for that, but I'm honored to have been part of that process for her, and I think it really speaks strongly about the power of hypnosis.
That is an amazing story, and I can only imagine how that must feel to be a part of that. That's wild. Congratulations, and also thanks for sharing it. Certainly. You mentioned the word attract in there, and I know you have a book that's about attraction. What is the title of the book you came out with Frank?
With Frank Mangano, it's called You Can Attract It.
You Can Attract It, and that's a book that's on Amazon and so forth?
Yes. Inspired by, I've got to say this, inspired by a lot of your teachings, Joe.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I know that you use the word attract. You have a book called You Can Attract It, so you are into law of attraction. How do I say it? How are you blending the law of attraction with hypnosis? How do they work together?
Well, that's an interesting question, and the answer is that a lot of people have a challenge with manifestation and attracting things and believing that it's real and believing that it can happen for them. So hypnosis breaks down that barrier. It gets past that conscious critical factor that says, I can't, I won't, I'm not enough, it won't happen for me. And it gets right to that part of the human mind that believes anything. It's open to accept suggestion. And when you put positive things in that part of a human's mind, wonderful things open up. Because suddenly it's not about potential failure and I'm not deserving of this and it won't work for me. It's about possibility. And their mind just opens up, so their world opens up. And so the law of attraction for them becomes second nature. It becomes something they just do rather than planning to do or thinking about doing or analyzing. They just let it happen. I
love that. So let's probe a little bit here. If they have a belief that says, I can't attract something, or I can't attract anything, we'll just go with that. I can't attract anything, or nothing works out for me. Those are beliefs. Are those beliefs in their conscious mind or in their unconscious mind?
Well, they're mainly in the unconscious mind, their subconscious mind, same thing, and they are being fed to the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is constantly looking for, okay, how do I interpret this? Something happened. How do I interpret it? Did it happen because I'm a bad person, because I'm not worthy, because I'm not good enough, or did it just happen? Or did it happen for some other reasons? So the subconscious mind has all these beliefs, that's ready to feed, to give you your meaning of what's happening. So it's a combination of the two working together.
Okay, so when you go into hypnosis or you lead somebody into a relaxed state and they're more open to suggestion, are you replacing, removing, installing a new belief? Are you taking out the I can't attract anything, it never works for me belief? Are you overriding it with a suggestion from an authority, in this case the hypnotist, saying I can attract anything, these do work for me? What do you think is the process happening there?
I believe it's a combination of all of the verbs that you mentioned, replacing, overriding, and so forth, and it really depends on the individual. For some people, psychological studies show that some people will just believe what a person in a white coat tells them.
Yeah.
And they go into the doctor's office and they just believe it, and it doesn't matter what it is. And so part of it is that with some people. With other people, they're more resistant. They say, well, I don't trust doctors. I don't know if I'm going to believe everything that this person says. And after all, it's not a medical doctor, it's a hypnotherapist, so I'm really not sure. So then it becomes a matter of sometimes, overriding or replacing, or when we get more delicate and intricate with it, it becomes a matter of changing an existing belief into something that's more powerful and more useful.
And I would imagine in your work as a clinical hypnotherapist, you're probably doing that kind of, I'm going to use the word mind surgery. You're going in there and you're not just replacing a belief, you are actually working maybe to find out what the original belief is and removing it.
Yes.
Is that I don't want to assume. Is that correct? Is that
Yes. In the cases in which I'm able to do it that way, yes, because that is ideal. It's sort of like the movie The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they just go in and they literally have a machine that erases memories. So in some instances, it can almost be as neat and clean as that. That's the ideal situation.
Wow. Now, I didn't give websites, so I want to just pause for a second. I'm interviewing Steve G. Jones, and his main website is betterlivingwithhypnosis.com, www.betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. He also has a personal site, stevegjones.com, and he's the author of You Can Attract It. And, of course, we're talking about hypnosis and how we individually can benefit from it, how we can use it. And right now we're talking about the law of attraction and that. Can you attract anything you want through hypnosis?
I believe you can. I believe you can attract anything you want anyway, but some people don't believe that. So hypnosis just comes in and says, forget about what you don't believe. Let's not think about that right now. Let's just accept this universal fact, which is that whatever you put out there, you're going to get.
Well, what about the skeptics? Because I always play devil's advocate on these interviews because I'm trying to imagine what my folks listening are thinking. And when they hear the statement, you can attract anything you want, oh boy, the fire alarms go off in their head. They're saying, oh, that's not possible. I'd be deluding myself. When they hear that, is that a belief shouting in their head, or is that something else?
That's a belief shouting in their head because, in my opinion, because we want to make meaning out of things that we experience. And when we hear something, we compare it to the template that it most closely fits from our past. And some people just have a past in which things haven't worked out, and their parents told them they're not going to earn more than a certain amount of money, and they gathered from their environment that they should be a certain way, and their friends reinforce that. And so that's the template that they've built up. So you come in with this crazy notion that you can have whatever you want, and they compare it to quote-unquote reality, which is just a template that's in their mind that doesn't even exist. And they say, no, I'm going to knock it down with that template because it doesn't stack up to that, and I'm going to just not believe it.
This is pretty fascinating. I think we just pulled back a layer of what happens in our day-to-day living, because when that voice shouts, it's possible or it's not possible, most people identify that as reality.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're making a statement, but they don't hear it as a belief. They don't even hear it as a statement. They hear it as their reality.
Right.
How do we interrupt that pattern? And I know we didn't talk about any of these questions before. I want everybody to know, listening, Steve and I didn't talk about any of this beforehand, so I'm coming up with questions that I might be making him think through this, and me too. I'm thinking through this myself. I was kind of on the spot.
That's good stuff. Can you repeat that question?
Well, what I'm looking at is that somebody's listening, and when they say, I agree or I don't agree, it feels to them like that is not a belief, that's not a statement of reality, that feels like reality.
Right.
How do we interrupt that so that we can see what our own boundaries are? Because I'm thinking to myself, well, I surely have my own mindset, my own template. At this point, it's different than the one I had when I was homeless. It's more of a lifestyle of the rich and famous kind of a template. But there's still boundaries and limitations around it or within it that I live from.
Right.
So I'm exploring, how do I become aware of that? And by extension, anybody listening, no matter what's going on as they're listening to this, they might be thinking, yeah, of course I believe in abundance. Or they might be thinking, no, you can't attract everything you want. How do we stop and go, well, those are beliefs?
Well, when I work with clients one-on-one, what I usually do is re-educate them to the best of my ability in the time that I have. One of the ways to really get present to what's going on is to realize that a lot of it's just in the language that they're using. It's just in the way they're labeling things. And these distinctions that they think they've worked out and figured out in life really don't exist, as we've been talking about. They only exist in their language. So once they start cleaning up their language and stop saying, I can't, I won't, and so forth, and start speaking differently, that's where a lot of the change takes place, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So even though you may say, you can start saying, I'm wealthy, I'm talking about a client who's not wealthy, they start saying, I'm wealthy. Well, they're thinking when they say that, oh, that's a bunch of crap, that's not true. And then the more they say it, the more their subconscious mind starts to accept it. Now, when the subconscious mind starts to accept something, it starts to look for ways to make it real. And when it does make it real, that's when they start attracting abundance. And it's oftentimes through very practical means, because rather than passing on opportunities because they don't think it's going to work out, or they don't think that person really meant it, then they start accepting those, and they start going for it. They start living as if it's going to work out. So there's a very practical side, which is simply reprogramming the subconscious mind to take advantage of opportunities that have already been present in the environment and continue to be present, but previously the person thought, well, that's not for me.
That's very beautifully stated. I'm glad that you explained it that way, and I'm glad I fumbled around to get to the question I wanted to ask, because this is enlightening. So, and this is kind of a tangent to that, what advice do you have for people who want to live a life of abundance? There's people listening and they're going, okay, this is sounding great. I can change my reality. It doesn't matter what my past is. I got to watch my language. How do I move in the direction? How do they move in the direction of living a life of full abundance?
Well, and that's a great question, because a lot of people might hear what we're saying right now and might think, well, let's see, my income is $200 a week, and I'm about to be evicted, and I'm not sure where my next meal is going to come from, where the child support's going to come from, and so forth. And they're wondering how they can go from that to this life of abundance. And I think that the way to do it, of course, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I'm going to advise along the lines of hypnotherapy, but I feel that the best way to do it, and the way that worked for me, the way that I had my hero's journey, just as you had your own, mine happened when I started acting as if, as I said before. I started talking as if. I started saying things as if they were already reality. The next thing I knew, they were starting to happen. And this sometimes sounds ridiculous to people who are saying, well, wait a minute, if you're going to say I'm going to go from where I am to that just by speaking differently, speaking differently has everything to do with programming the subconscious mind, because hypnosis can happen at night when you're listening to a recording, but it can also happen all day long. When you catch yourself saying, I can't, you change it to I will or I am.
I will or I am. That's the new language.
There you go. I prefer I am. I prefer to say things right now, and people may find it weird to walk around and say, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire, when they have a few $100 in the bank. Mm-hmm. But the subconscious mind hears that, becomes reprogrammed, and at a certain point in time, that will become their reality.
Then we're going to pause on that and explore it for a second, because I love where you're coming from, but I want to make sure everybody understands it and how to use it. Because I've also heard the objections over the year. When you say something like, I am a millionaire, and of course they can't afford lunch, they feel like they're lying to themselves, and they feel poor. Is it simply repetition? Is it saying every day, I am a multimillionaire, I am a multimillionaire, I am a multimillionaire, or whatever the phrase is that they want, until that becomes a reality, or is there some other work to do there?
Well, there is some other work to do, because it's got to be brought to the field. I mean, just saying it and then passing on all these opportunities is not going to make it real, because what's going to happen is that the subconscious mind is going to start believing it at a certain point. It's going to start saying, I am a millionaire. But then it's going to look around its environment and see that that's not reality. So it's going to make attempts to make that reality, because it's been told that that's the case. So these attempts need to be followed through with. If they're not, then the person's going to be right back where they were. So taking a practical example, let's say we have someone named Bill who doesn't have much money, and in fact he's in a fair amount of debt, and he starts saying, I'm a millionaire. And he's going, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. And he goes through his life saying that for the next few days, doesn't see $1 million showing up at the door, starts to kind of doubt it, but still keeps saying it. Well, what's going to happen is that after probably just a few weeks, the subconscious mind is really going to start to grab a hold of this, sort of like one of the songs that gets in your head, whether you like it or not, and it's going to start looking for those environments. Next thing you know, Bill gets an opportunity to meet some people, whereas normally he might have thought, wait a minute, I'm not worthy of that, I don't think that's going to happen, that's not for me. He will then, if he accepts it on the practical side, on the field, on the playing field, if he accepts it and goes to meet them, he's going to find that opportunities open up, opportunities that lead to other opportunities. If he continues to do that, what he's going to find on a very practical level is that life is going to open up. He's going to continue living as if, speaking as if, and soon he's going to be in that position that he wants to be in.
So I'm hearing a 3-step formula here. And the first is to speak the language as if what you want already is reality. I am a millionaire, for example. The second step seems to be taking action when the subconscious mind is more or less testing you on your languaging. Yes. When you're saying, I am a millionaire, and the subconscious mind says, okay, I guess he wants to be a millionaire, let me pull this into her awareness. At that point, you have the opportunity to take action, or you have the opportunity to pass on it, which is a different kind of action. But assuming you take the action on it, because I want to be a millionaire, I am a millionaire, it leads to the opportunity, you take action showing that you are becoming a millionaire. The third one is this starts to lodge in your reality or morph into your reality, and you are a millionaire. Yes. And I'm repeating this as a test. Is this correct? Does this sound like the 3 steps?
You are a great student of listening. You are absolutely right. Yes, I like the way you put that, and it's absolutely accurate.
And I'm harping on action because I think that's the thing. If I had to say there's number one thing that people don't do, whether it's in the law of attraction, in marketing, in personal development, it's taking action. They more or less want it just to fall in their lap. They want to say, I am a millionaire, and then wake up with money in their pocket. And yep. I keep harping on you got to take action. What is your feeling on that, or your thoughts?
I 110% agree. I mean, I was, after being on a show as a millionaire on the show, a lot of people started coming up to me and who saw me on TV and said, hey, how can I be a millionaire? Well, I would tell them in 5 minutes. And I know you do this with people too, Joe. Mm-hmm. I would tell them, okay, what do you do? All right, here's how to do it differently. Here's how to do it like I do it, which is primarily online. If you continue to do this and build in these structures, you will become a millionaire. Check back with them in a week or so. Have you done anything? No. Why not? Well, I don't really think that's going to work for me.
And let's stop right there because, and I totally agree with you, but when you or anybody listening says they didn't take action because they didn't believe it was going to work for them, that is a belief that they've accepted.
Yes.
That is a programming that they've accepted. That right there is the rub. How do we disconnect that or help people to disconnect that? I mean, virtually everybody listening, I got all these people that subscribe to Hypnotic Gold, all these people listening have had great ideas. They were either handed to them because of the interview and there was something that showed up, or there was an idea that came to them as a side benefit of listening to the interview, but they didn't take action. I'm calling on them right now and pointing out that this is because of the languaging they've accepted, the belief they've accepted. What do they do when they catch themselves saying, I didn't do it because I didn't think it would work out, I didn't think it would work for me? What do they do in that moment?
I think the first step to do is maybe they can pull it back a little bit and take a baby step, or maybe they can just jump right in, depending on their personality. At some point, it really does require a leap of faith, and you've got to give yourself permission to fail. You've got to give yourself permission to fall flat on your face and have it not work out, because not every shot that you take is going to be a winner. You've got to realize that the more shots you take, the more things you have going on, the better your chances of being successful. So you have to, I think what works on a practical level is to give yourself permission to fail and realize ultimately there is no failure. It's all a learning curve. So the first thing you do may not be the big thing. And I think people get hung up on that. They think, okay, if I do this, then it's going to work out. Oh, it didn't work out. I knew it wouldn't produce results. Forget it. And so you have to give yourself permission to get out on the field, get the ball, run a little bit, trip and fall and be embarrassed, and it's okay because you're going to continue doing that.
Oh, that's brilliant advice, though. I love it. I'm glad that you pointed out about failure. Another way is to look at it as just feedback, because you get some information, which is all it is, something you tried that you wanted to work out in a particular way, didn't work out in that way, it worked out in a different way. So that's information. You use the information and adapt or course correct to go forward. And for whatever reason I want to mention, I just finished reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography, Total Recall. And I am absolutely riveted by the book, 600 and some pages in it, and I hung on every single word in it. And he's a great believer in being okay to fail. He has big goals. He takes big risks. He knows if it works out, it's a big payoff. And if he knows if it doesn't, he won't die.
Absolutely.
He will just move on. And when you see a life like his with absolutely astonishing successes, you start to gather that, wow, this setting goals and taking actions and being okay with how things work out must really work. And that's the point. It does.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that. That's a great name for his book, by the way, his autobiography. But I was in Santa Monica, California, playing pool about 10 years ago, and there was a guy there who said, he was from the same country Arnold is, I guess Austria, I believe.
Austria, yes.
Yep, and this guy was saying, Arnold and I work out together. We've worked out together for years, but it just never came together for me. And I started thinking, wow, wait a minute, this is kind of like Arnold's twin almost. They both came over from Austria. One is super successful. One's just playing pool with me at a bar in Santa Monica. What happened?
Wow.
And so I started probing his mind, and I realized that he had almost all of the opportunities that Arnold had. He just never took the shots.
That is an amazing, I'm so glad I brought that up. That is an amazing story. And since we're talking about goals and languaging and everything, when Arnold decided that he was going to be a Hollywood movie star, and not just a Hollywood movie star, but a #1 leading man Hollywood movie star, he stated that goal when he was a teenager in Austria who could not speak English and had never been to America.
Oh, my goodness. That sets it up.
I'm pausing for dramatic emphasis here because I want everybody to soak that up. And, of course, if he had not become the success he is, we wouldn't know anything about that. He would have done something else. He would have gone on. It might have been an interesting story he told his kids. But because he did this, not only had the languaging, because he did tell himself he is this movie star, he also took action. And I believe that on some level in his body, he was in a trance. He put himself into this ironclad, self-hypnotic state that was allowing him to live it before the rest of us ever got to live it.
Oh, absolutely. And you start living as if and acting as if, and suddenly that's another point. People become enrolled in your possibilities. They start getting into what you're getting into, and they start believing it, and you're thinking, well, okay, I said it, and they believed, I guess we're going to go ahead and do this thing. And
Right.
the next thing you know, your friends are pushing for you as if it's already happened, and then it becomes a lot easier.
And it does get easier. I think it's a little bit like working a muscle. The first time you might be a little sore, uncomfortable, awkward, even want to quit. But as you keep doing it, the muscles enlarge, it gets easier, you know what you're doing, you know, everything becomes more comfortable that way, and you just keep stretching. And I want to remind people I'm interviewing Steve G. Jones, hypnotherapist. He's a celebrity hypnotherapist. His website is betterlivingwithhypnosis.com, www.betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. He's got a bunch of books out there, but of course the one you want to go pick up right now is You Can Attract It, which he co-authored with our mutual friend Frank. So let's talk about a couple more things before I get to let you go, and thank you so much for making this time. I know you're really busy. Can hypnosis help people build wealth?
Yes.
And I'm thinking of the people listening. A lot of them are online entrepreneurs, and they might be going, well, I want more sales on my website. I don't care if I'm in hypnosis. I want my sales letter to pull better. How can hypnosis help them build wealth?
Well, I think especially with online entrepreneurs, a lot of the and I'm blessed because I have people who do a lot of the marketing for me, and a lot of the people that both of us work with, and it's really nice that way. But people who are down in the trenches and doing their marketing constantly, there's a lot of you take a lot of shots. You get blown out of the ditch a lot of times because you're down there in the trenches. Sometimes fighting for your life. This is the money that you're going to get. A lot of online marketers are in that position. Or if they get their head above ground and they start moving forward, they want to move to the next level, and it becomes even more of a challenge. So once you realize that people like Tiger Woods used hypnosis when he was 12, his dad took him to a hypnotherapist. Tiger Woods is just hitting a little white ball around with a metal stick. That's all he's doing. I mean, why would he need to be in a trance to do that? How hard can it be? You walk up to the ball and you swing at it and you put it in the hole. That's it. But that's really not it. And that's not it when you're marketing online or when you're doing anything else that requires you to maintain a positive mindset and to look for opportunities in your environment. Because every day you're going to get beat up in what you're doing. You're going to have failures. And you've got to, as you said, turn them into feedback to look at them for that, and also keep moving forward. So hypnosis gives you that edge, gives you that oomph, gives you that, I don't care what happened yesterday, this is a new day and I'm continuing to move forward. You really don't get that from your everyday experience in marketing. What you do get is beat up really badly, feeling like you're behind the curve, feeling that, this stuff is a lot of stuff to learn, and oh my goodness, how am I going to take this in? And what you need is calmness and focus and the belief that if you continue moving forward, things are going to work out. So that's how hypnosis helps out with specifically marketing.
And if they're listening right now and they're sold on this, what do they do to put themselves or into a trance or to use hypnosis? Is this a matter of hiring you? I didn't even ask if you're available to be hired. Are you?
I am. I charge a little bit more than I used to now, but I am.
And since that came up, how would people reach you? Do they go to that stevegjones.com, or is there another way to reach you?
The best way is stevegjones.com if you want to reach me and have me work with you. And there's a link for that. You can contact the office and so forth.
Okay, so one level is personally hiring you for professional hypnotherapy, so that's stevegjones.com. And then another is, do they buy audios that are already made by you or somebody else, or do they make their own? What's the wise choices here?
It depends on your preference. I myself, and I'm not saying this because I make and I sell audios, I just think it's an easier route. I think it's easier if you just pay for a recording that's already made by someone, whether it's me or someone else. So on my website, I sell my recordings, of course. I've done a lot of recordings. We've got 230 categories, and we've got about 9,000 recordings altogether because we have different backgrounds for those, different delivery systems, daytime recordings, nighttime recordings.
I see.
Recordings you listen to while you exercise and so forth. But I think the path of least resistance, the shortest point from A to B, is to get my or someone else's recording and listen to it. Now, at my website, I have a free recording for wealth. So we're talking about wealth. That's so you can check that one off. But if you want
to
go,
your SteveGJones.com site?
Yes.
Okay.
Go there, and we've got a recording for you, no charge.
Great.
And then if you want to take that a step further and want to get into some intricate details of yourself specifically, I do recommend learning self-hypnosis, which is what I did. That way you can program yourself for specifically what you are working on, because the recording doesn't know that. The recording is sort of a general recording to hit the highlights. But if you learn self-hypnosis, you will truly master this.
Well, how do you learn self-hypnosis?
Well, I do teach that as well, or you can simply get a book on it like I did. Self-hypnosis is really not that complicated. It's a process that you take yourself through. You walk yourself through it, preferably with a recording. Put yourself into hypnosis using an induction, which is about 10 minutes long, just you describing a relaxing walk on the beach. I'm walking on the beach now. Or you can say, you are walking on the beach now. It doesn't matter which one you use. And then the deepening, which is counting from 10 to 1 as the sun sets, for example. So you'd spend about 10 minutes describing the beach and describing how all your senses interact with the beach, smelling it, seeing it, hearing it, and so forth. Then a few minutes about the sun setting as you count from 10 to 1. And then put in some programming. What do you want to work on? You want to overcome a fear or break through a limiting belief. Put that in there. Spend about 10 minutes talking about that. And then bring yourself out of the trance. And that can happen in one of two ways. You can either tell yourself to go to sleep if you want a nighttime recording, or you can just say, I'm going to count to 3, and at the count of 3, I'll be awake. And then count 1, 2, 3. Wake yourself up.
Gosh, thank you for giving so much, because you just outlined exactly what we need to do to create our own audio there.
Yeah.
When somebody does, how often should they listen to it?
I recommend what most people say, which is 21 nights. Now, there's nothing magical about that, about the 3-week mark. It just seems to me, from my experience and from some of the studies that I've read, that given 3 weeks to work on something, you pretty much get past everything, because there's going to be a point in there where you may have a lull, or you may think that you've succeeded after a short period of time, but you really could use a little bit more boost, sort of like taking antibiotics. You finish it out. So if you listen to it for 3 weeks, I feel you'll be in the ideal situation to move forward.
Oh, I love it. What about goal setting? Do you have any tips on setting goals? Is there a hypnotic way to do it? And again, be thinking that these people are online entrepreneurs, so they want to increase sales. But maybe it is something else. They want to lose weight. They want to stop smoking. They want to be more confident. They want to overcome the fear of public speaking. What is a hypnotic way to state a goal to speed it up, more or less, for it to be happening?
Well, I believe that it should be stated as now. I think that's your most effective way, as if speaking as if is always very powerful. And state it in a positive way, not as if I'm trying to do this or I want to do this. I am this. This is what I am. I believe that those are two of the. You can add different flavoring to it, but I believe that those are the two main parts of it that are going to get you the most mileage. Stating it in the here and now, and stating it in a very positive way.
I love that. That's empowering. And that goes back to what you said earlier about the languaging, is that we're already stating the reality we want until the subconscious mind actually accepts it as the new reality, and then in a way tests us by giving us an opportunity to act on. Then, of course, as we talked about earlier, we need to act on it.
Yes,
so absolutely. I like that. I love that. Here's an off-the-wall question. Do you have any great hypnotic jokes?
I wish I did. Like, how many hypnotists does it take to change a light bulb or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Oh, no, we'll change it to hypnotists. We're going to own this one. How many hypnotists does it take to change a light bulb?
360. I have no idea. What?
It takes one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
That's good. That's good. As far as a continuation for people, what books or audios or classes or resources are your favorite that you would recommend to somebody that wants to explore hypnosis for their own use?
Wow. Well, let's see. I've got a lot of my own resources, but looking outside of that, I would say that, when you get into the world of hypnosis, I think anything is great. If you can get your hands on, which you can, probably through Amazon or something, anything by Richard Bandler and John Grinder about that's NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, but they do a bit of hypnosis stuff too. That book that started me off, the complete Guide to Hypnosis by Leslie Lecron. He was a psychologist, a practicing psychologist for a long time, and wrote in a very down-to-earth way that I, as a 15-year-old kid, could pick up on. Sometimes in the southeastern United States, we have people come through and do, weight loss at 10 o'clock at the Holiday Inn, stop smoking at 12 o'clock. Even if someone doesn't find themselves in either of those situations, just going there, they normally don't charge much, and you can kind of see a group of people being hypnotized. It's pretty fascinating. Whereas paying a hypnotherapist could be a little bit more. But beyond that, for if you want me to give some of my resources that I personally created, okay, hypnosiscertified.com is a great place to learn hypnosis. You can learn hypnosis, and you can learn NLP. 3 levels of NLP, 2 levels of hypnosis. You can actually get certified online. And as I was finishing my doctorate, I started looking into Ivy League schools and found out that they were offering certifications and trainings online. Previously, you wouldn't find that. You'd find it only in the bricks and mortar version of their classrooms, but they're offering it online. So we brought this to the online world. You will find at hypnosiscertified.com the world's first and only fully online NLP certification program.
Wow.
You'll also find a 2 levels of hypnosis certification, and you can get up and running. You can get certified, and you can help yourself and start helping others. And if you want, you can turn it into a career like I did.
That is amazing. Thank you. That's hypnosiscertified.com, www.hypnosiscertified.com. And also, I just peeked at Amazon and Leslie Lecron's books. He wrote several. Self-hypnotism, the technique and its use in daily life was one. Complete Guide to Hypnosis is another. Hypnotism Today is yet another. There's several books, but they appear to be all available. So if people are interested in that, you can look up Leslie Lecron, Lecron, and find some of those books. And Steve, this is amazing. You are quite the resource here. I can keep interviewing you for hours to days. So thank you so much for making time. If there's what takeaway or to-do do you want people to do right now? We're going to get off this call. They're going to be thinking about this and reflecting. What is something you think would be a practical baby step, first step, big step, whatever it happens to be? What do you recommend that they do, they think about, they go get? What comes to mind?
Well, I think that everyone has an individual answer to that, and I recommend acting on that because there's something, some action that's positive for them, positive for the listener, positive for you, positive for the people in your environment, and it's going to potentially positively impact your life. You don't know that yet, but you suspect that. I challenge everyone listening to this right now to do that thing that you've been putting off because you've been too scared to do it.
Oh, I love that. Laying down a challenge, what a way to go. You know how to make an exit. That's good. I've been talking to Steve G. Jones. Go to his website, stevegjones.com, betterlivingwithhypnosis.com, hypnosiscertified.com. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale, encouraging you to go for your dreams. Talk to you next month. Godspeed to all of you. Thanks again.